When was the last time anyone truly saw 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro alive? His parents told police he was kidnapped from a parking lot. But neighbors, they whisper something different. No one, outside that house, can confirm laying eyes on him for weeks. And here's the chilling truth: when a child disappears behind closed doors, silence becomes a weapon. Subscribe right now, because if we don't keep telling these stories, more children risk being erased before the world even notices they were gone. And if you don't believe in amplifying Emmanuel's voice, then tell us why in the comments, because silence is complicity. On August 14, 2025, in Yucaipa, California, Jake Haro, age 32, and Rebecca Haro, age 41, reported their baby missing. The story? A brazen kidnapping in broad daylight. But within days, that story unraveled. Prosecutors now allege Emmanuel was already gone, killed days earlier. Jake and Rebecca have been charged with murder and filing a false report. Their bail: $1 million each. Their arraignment? Continued to September 4th. The district attorney gave a haunting statement. Investigators believe they know where Emmanuel's remains are, but have not yet revealed the location. Think about that. A baby's body, hidden. And yet his parents walked free long enough to weave their lie. That's why you need to subscribe right now, to demand accountability in cases where justice hides in the shadows. If you don't, ask yourself, why let tragedy be swallowed in silence? So here is the question that stops this story cold: if no neighbor, no family member, no friend saw Emmanuel in the days, maybe even weeks, leading up to August 14th, then what was happening inside that home? We're about to step into the investigation, where timelines collapse, lies split open, and horror begins to surface. But before we do, hit subscribe. Because stories like Emmanuel's don't just disappear, they get buried. And unless we demand the truth, buried is exactly where they'll stay. August 5th. That's the last time officials believe 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro was seen alive. 10 days later, on August 14th, his mother, Rebecca, dialed 911 with a story that would grip a community. She claimed she'd been attacked in a Big 5 parking lot, her baby kidnapped in the chaos. But investigators soon uncovered a different reality. The kidnapping never happened. The story was fabricated. By late August, the pieces began to collapse. On August 25th, Jake and Rebecca Haro were arrested. Within days, they were charged with murder and filing a false report. At a press conference, the district attorney outlined a suspected timeline of abuse and death, alleging, Emmanuel was gone days before the so-called abduction. Bail was set at $1 million each. Their arraignment? Pushed to September 4th. And yet, during those days of frantic searches, Jake was seen walking side by side with investigators, pretending to help look for the child he's now accused of killing. Subscribe right now, because if this doesn't send chills down your spine, you're not paying attention. And if you won't, explain why in the comments, because silence here is choosing denial. The investigation shifted from missing person to homicide when detectives pulled surveillance, cross-checked timelines, and listened to contradictions spill from the Haros mouths. Their story couldn't hold. At the presser, authorities used language that stunned even veteran reporters. Emmanuel had endured a lifetime of severe abuse, in just 7 months of life. And investigators said they believe they know where his body lies, though they have not revealed the site. But Emmanuel's tragedy wasn't born in a vacuum. His father, Jake, already had a history, convicted of abusing another infant. Yet his sentence? Suspended. Reduced to probation and work release. The district attorney didn't mince words, calling that earlier outcome outrageous, and linking it directly to Emmanuel's fate. In a jailhouse interview, Jake denied any pattern of abuse. But the official charge sheet, and the district attorney's release, told a darker story. So here we are. A child no one saw, parents who wove lies, and a system that failed before. The question the community can't escape is this: was Emmanuel hidden away, long before August 14th? Subscribe now, because every child at risk deserves a voice. And if you won't add yours, the comments are open. Tell us why his silence doesn't move you. When neighbors never saw Emmanuel, maybe it wasn't an accident. Maybe it was the plan. And that brings us to what comes next, the mind behind the crime. And the story of the baby himself. 7 months. That's all Emmanuel Haro ever had. He lived with his parents, Jake and Rebecca, and an older sibling, an older child who has since been removed by authorities. But here's what cuts the deepest: outside of that household, almost no one remembers seeing him. Neighbors can't place him. Extended family hasn't stepped forward. For investigators, that silence wasn't just eerie, it was a red flag. Patterns began to emerge. Isolation of the infant from outsiders. The psychology. Inconsistent stories allege from the Emmanuel endured severe, a household abuse. Already marked by prior injury to another child. That phrase is loaded. Shifting timelines. It suggests a pattern of criminologists. These markers often point toward one of the darkest probabilities in infant cases. Homicide when the truth threatened to break through, investigators say a false kidnapping story was staged, a desperate attempt to rewrite reality and divert suspicion. Jake Haro had already faced a child abuse conviction involving a different infant. Yet his punishment? Suspended. Probation. Work release. The district attorney later called that outcome outrageous, tying it directly to Emmanuel's fate. Subscribe now, because ignoring this cycle is how it repeats. And if you won't, at least leave a comment explaining why Emmanuel's silence doesn't matter to you. But concealment doesn't end at the crime. It spills into the courts, into legal strategy, into how stories are spun. Which raises the next burning question. If hiding Emmanuel was part of the pattern, what did the Haros try to hide once the law caught up? And why did it set off a public firestorm? Then came the twist no one saw coming. Reports began to circulate online, on X, Threads, even Facebook, that Jake Haro had retained Paulette Garthwaite, the same public defender once tied to the infamous Turpin House of Horrors case. The association wasn't confirmed in traditional outlets, but the claim spread like wildfire. Meanwhile, whispers online suggested Rebecca Haro had secured Jeff Moore, a former Riverside County prosecutor. Again, circulating largely on social media, not yet locked down by the mainstream press. Why does this matter? Optics. The Turpin name alone conjures one of California's darkest child abuse sagas, 13 siblings chained, starved, and hidden in plain sight. To align Emmanuel's case with even a shadow of that legacy is explosive. Strategically, lawyers who've weathered child abuse trials know the terrain. Complex evidence, emotional juries, fragile public trust. But in the court of public opinion, strategy blurs into symbolism. Was this about finding the best defense, or about attaching the Haro case to one of the most notorious trials in state history? And the public noticed. TikTok edits, Instagram reels, Facebook groups, Reddit threads, the chatter exploded. Overnight, the Haros weren't just defendants, they were characters in a story the internet couldn't stop reshaping. The danger? Narrative velocity outpacing verified fact. But here's the cliffhanger: when courtroom strategy collides with the collective memory of the Turpins, does justice risk becoming theater? Or does the weight of that history sharpen the search for truth? And if the lawyers' names dominate headlines, where does that leave Emmanuel? The stakes crystallize inside the courtroom. Prosecutors have filed 2 core charges: murder under Penal Code 187, and filing a false police report under Penal Code 148.5. To convict, they must prove not only that Emmanuel Haro is dead, but that his death was intentional, unlawful, and carried out by his parents. Their pillars? Timeline. Forensics. Digital footprints. And the holes in a story that unraveled from the inside out. The defense will fight to dismantle that picture. Expect arguments challenging the timeline of death. Was it truly August 5th? They'll push back on the prosecution's claim of severe, ongoing abuse, insisting that narrative exaggerates or misrepresents. And they'll seek to suppress evidence of Jake's prior child abuse conviction, arguing it poisons the jury before facts are weighed. Evidence is expected to cut sharp. Surveillance that contradicts the parking lot abduction, phone and location data mapping the parents' movements, the glaring absence of neighbors or relatives who saw Emmanuel alive after August 5. And if, when, the child's remains are recovered, forensic results may become the trial's most haunting centerpiece. The emotional peak arrives here, a baby who, according to prosecutors, lived and died almost entirely unseen. Emmanuel's invisibility is the horror at the case's core. And so we leave Act V on a knife's edge. If investigators find Emmanuel's remains where they expect, will that discovery cement the state's narrative beyond doubt? Or will it raise chilling new questions about how, when, and why his short life was taken? Stay with us for the resolution. The courtroom calendar is set. The arraignment has been continued to September 4th. Both parents remain held on $1 million bail, as investigators continue searching in undisclosed areas. The case is still unfolding, and the questions still cut deep. Who last verifiably saw Emmanuel alive? Did past sentencing decisions, probation instead of prison, leave the door open for tragedy? And if Emmanuel's remains are found, will they finally confirm when, and how, his short life ended? Rumors swirl on social media, stories of hidden babies, fires, and secret sightings. But those are whispers, not facts. The truth is heavy enough without feeding speculation. In cases like this, rumor doesn't just confuse, it can actively harm the search for justice. So, the close is not about spectacle. It is about the systems that failed, the neighbors who didn't see, and the children who remain unseen all around us. Emmanuel Haro lived only 7 months. His story is not just a case file, it is a mandate. A call to look closer, to speak up, and to never let silence shield the suffering of a child again. L.